learn. It's a little difficult in this time of year, to get into a church on Sunday morning and hear about Buddha. And the only reason it is difficult is because you've been conditioned to make it difficult. You've been told you shouldn't talk about these things, and that's what you've done. So you've developed a fear of it. Simply, you hear the word Buddha, you develop a fear. And yet this particular voice that came so many thousands of years ago was here to do one thing, to help you overcome suffering. See? But the way he helped you overcome suffering is the way Jesus helped you overcome suffering, and that is places it within yourself and shows you how to control yourself to overcome these things. And that's difficult for the system to deal with because the system wants to be able to control and do the things for you. And so they say, stay away from these type of people. Okay? I mean, the people who are setting the traps don't want you to know, about where the traps are. And these guys are telling you where the traps are and how to avoid them. What are you doing sitting here, anyhow? Why would you come down here? The reason that you're coming down here is because of what's happening in the world, what's happening in the universe. If you can sit here and tell me that after watching the newspapers for the last year, watching the television for the last year, that you can't conceive and understand that this is a new age, something is going on, then there's something wrong. Okay? You've seen the Soviet Union disappear before your eyes. Absolutely gone into a commonwealth. Like, what happened? You've seen the Berlin Wall disappear. Whatever happened to it? Oh, that'll be up forever. Where'd it go? Remember the big thing was the Iran-Contra, the Contra and the Sandinistas. Where'd they go? What happened to them? You see, North Korea and South Korea sitting down making a friendship pact. That's ridiculous. It could never be. You see, the Jews and the Palestinians are sitting down at conference tables. I remember the guy standing at the door last year said, yeah, you say this is a new age. I'll believe it's a new age when the hostages are released. They are. And I mean, everything that you've seen happen, and yet here we have people who claim Christianity looking for something, waiting for it. It's like the guy that's stranded on top of the roof of the house in the flood, and the guy comes with a rowboat, and the other guy comes with a helicopter, and the guy drowns and says, to God, I thought you were going to save me. He says, I sent a rowboat and a helicopter. Here you are sitting, not seeing all of what's going on. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Listen, beings of light, in Christian circles you would call them angels, are impacting on the minds of people and changing the minds of people forcibly. What you're seeing in this country, don't think that the United States would escape. It would only happen in South Africa. It would only happen in South America. It would only happen in the Soviet Union. You're seeing it happen in this country. And you know what's happening, what they call a recession in this country? People's minds are withdrawing within themselves. They're not interested as they were before in the material things. And they're starting to shut down. And it's just the beginning. What you saw in 1991 is nothing. This is the second coming of what you prayed for. This is the second coming of Christ. And the ones who should see it are totally missing it. Because it's coming like he said within the minds of people. What did he say? What? Do you realize why you start thinking differently and your minds are changing and you're starting to feel this way and why these things have happened in the world? Have you ever stopped for a minute? What's going on? Why have these things happened in the world? Why? Because you're moving from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age, and the Aquarian age is an air age, which means it's a change of consciousness. And these planets align differently. The entire universe is setting itself up in a different pattern for the first time in 2,600 years, and people start thinking differently. And that's why you're seeing everything, and you've just seen the beginning of it. You won't even recognize the country you're living in by the end of next year. You won't even recognize it. You won't have the slightest idea. You say, my God, do you remember when it used to? That's what's going to happen. And what did Jesus say about it? Did Jesus say? He said, when you see the man with the pitcher of water. I mean, couldn't he, when they asked him where they were going to have this dinner, couldn't he have said 1324 Main Street? Why did a man with a pitcher of water have to get involved in it? Because he knew. He was talking astrologically. And he said, when you see the man with the pitcher of water, follow him into the house. That's yourself. Go to the upper room, and there you'll find it. And most people, even to this day, are still reluctant Still don't know. You're still trying to fight your battles yourself, and you're losing ground. And all you have to do is, in this Aquarian age, get into it. Obey Jesus Christ. Enter within yourself and rise to the upper room. And I'll tell you something. It'll either go without you or you'll be part of it. It's called a centering. It's called harmony. For the animals, for life, for nature, everything is going back to nature, back to harmony. And it's very, very much biblical. And it's very, very much part of the teachings of Jesus Christ. But what are you going to do about it? I can't believe that when you come in on a Tuesday night, there's empty chairs. I cannot believe it. And people are out there trying to fight the battle. And the whole thing is that beings of light are entering into the domain of this earth, and they are actually touching the minds of people. People are fooling with your mind. You've had these characters out there fooling with your minds all of your life. You've gone to these churches all of your life. You've listened to everything they preach, and you sit here and you couldn't tell me one doggone thing they told you. Except keep waiting, keep waiting, keep waiting. Forget it. This is it. This is it. Right now, it's happening. And if you don't believe me, you shouldn't, open the newspaper. Watch the television every day and watch it happen. And what more proof, what more evidence do you need? This is it. This is it. This is the age. And everybody should be in the meditation, on the floor, getting deep within yourself, because this is the time when the powers are coming down and the light is pouring down from the universe into the minds of people. And if you'll open up the door, it'll come in. Knock and the door will be open. But you got to do it. You want to go to Bible studies. These guys on television, they read Bible studies and sing songs and all. Not going to bring you one bit closer to God. You got to experience it. You got to enter within yourself and experience the rapture of the new age. That's what you got to do. It's great. This is it. This is it. It's waited a long time, and it's here. So I encourage you now to be a part of it. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore. Stop praying about it. Go in and get it. And this is what we're talking about. We've risen in the teachings of Buddha from hell right up through to where we're at today. Buddhahood, or Christ consciousness. And you know what Buddha said? There are three questions that come to people's minds essentially as soon as they hear about this. What is it? I can be involved in it? And how? That's what he said. He said, those are the three questions you're going to ask. That's exactly what Jesus was saying. You're saying things. How can it involve me? And I am telling you here, I am standing here week after week after week telling you how to get involved in it. I don't care if they call me a cult. Who cares what they call me? They've screwed it up for 2,000 years. I'm telling you. And all you've got to do, it doesn't cost you a dime of your money. It doesn't cost you 2 hours of your time. It just says enter within yourself and discipline yourself and start to plug into the vibrations which are exploding in the universe now. Or you want to stand up and go with them and sing songs and read about this stuff. I saw them the other day. The big campaign on religious television was, there's no Santa Claus. Tell the kids there's no Santa Claus. Baloney! Why? There is a Santa Claus. Santa Claus is a myth. Santa Claus is a myth which represents the relationships between parent and child. And as you grow older, you grow out of the myth into the realization. It's a beautiful time. And how can people who teach people that a guy got swallowed by a whale and the whale puked and out came an evangelist? Come to think of it, I mean, you know. Huh? How can you sit and tell them there's no Santa Claus when you teach them that this lovely, sexy little thing clipped this guy's hair and he lost all of his power and got beat up because she cut his hair? Or how about you could tell people that this guy took 2 animals of every kind, 2 animals of every kind in the world and put them on a boat? And you're going to tell them? And if you believe that a whale puked a guy, if you believe 2 animals of every kind, if you believe that this guy, then I tell you what, I got some ocean property in Arizona I want to sell you cheap. So what is the nature of all this? What's the nature of Buddhahood? What's the nature of Christ consciousness? And can you really possess it? How can you see it? How can you get it to develop? Get off your duff and do it. Don't wait any longer. Buzz out of there. Hit into the meditation. Get involved in it. Because he is here. I know. I spoke. It's light. I am. It's here. It's for you. And it doesn't cost you anything. Just what is it? What is it? Such a big deal that you can't stop these tremendous things you got to do on a Tuesday night? You can't give up these great things that you've got to do, these earth-shaking things that you've got to do to hit the floor and sit for 30 minutes? You got to. You've got to. Especially now. This, you're just marking on your refrigerator. One day, come on, just scroll in big black ink on your white refrigerator. This is it. And it is. It is. And if you don't think this is it, you ask Gorbachev. You think this is it? He said, yeah, this is it. But you know what Buddha said? How are you going to know this? It's like experiencing food. You want to go? Joan and I were in Ray and Sue's restaurant last night. We had 7 stars around the moon. You know, you could read about 7 stars around the moon. You know, that's what religion is. Let's go to the restaurant and read the menu. Okay. Hey, what we got here tonight? Lasagna, manicotti, fried ziti, baked ziti. This is great. Now let's go over to the Chinese restaurant. Oh, here we got 7 stars around the moon, lo mein, chow mein. You go from one restaurant every Wednesday night. They all assemble in their little religious restaurants, and they study the menu. We're going to have a menu study. We're going to study the menu, but they never eat it. Never eat it. And when you tell them to eat it, they say, you're a cult. What did he read this morning? Well, who read it? He read it. What did Jesus say? You're going to eat my flesh and drink my blood. He's saying, don't think you can get away by reading stuff that other people wrote. You got to eat it. You got to take it inside of you. And now you got the whole universe. If you could look up there, it would be like what's happening with the electrical energy. It would be like millions of angels coming down onto the earth, touching each one of you, putting their hand on each one of your shoulders. Electrical impulses, vibrations of energy. Why did Jesus say the man with the pitcher of water? Because Jesus knew that the next air age, when the consciousness of people would turn and be opened by the Supreme, would be Aquarius. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. It's yours. So it's important to know, and I want you to know what Buddhahood and Christ consciousness is and what it is not. And that's what I want you to look at. What is it not? It is not a supernatural state. Christ consciousness is not a supernatural state. Buddhahood is not a supernatural state because there is nothing supernatural. Everything is perfectly natural. You have just been convinced for so long that you're a worthless sinner that you've made that natural. You know what Buddha says? A lot of time people will start meditating and things will seem to get worse. I started meditating. Ever since I started meditating, you know, I got this, I got at least foot. Now, I didn't have that before I meditated. All of this stuff. You know what Buddha says the cause of that is? When you start to meditate, you become aware. You become enlightened. And all of a sudden, you realize that all of your life you've been living in a septic tank. Now you can smell it. And you say, I don't want to live here anymore. And you move. Like Joan says, you know, after the cat does it a few times in the kitty litter, I don't smell nothing. She comes in, how can you stand it in here? I said, what? I don't smell nothing. Because you get used to it, don't you? You know, if you every one of our houses has a distinct smell, doesn't it? Your house has a smell. Your house has a smell. Oh, your house has really a. Actually, your house. I didn't want to say, but your house really. But what happened? You go into your house, you get used to the smell, don't you? Smells okay to me. I like this. Great. The other guy walks in. Wow, you know, I don't mind the smell, but it hurts my eyes. You know, the paper's coming off the wall in that place. But what this is, and this does not give you, Buddhahood, Christ consciousness, does not give you magical powers. Okay? That's not what it's for. It does not give you magical powers to do amazing things. It is a state of consciousness that physically exists. Okay? It is not something that has to come out of the osmosis. It physically exists. In your head, between your ears, as Jesus said, is the kingdom of heaven. Buddha called it nirvana. Buddhahood, Christ, it's in there right now, waiting for you to wake it up. It is lying dormant. It is sleeping. Wake it up. Because there's 90% of your brain lying dormant with it for healing, for changing things. Wake it up. You're not going to get it on your terms. You've got to do it his way. And it manifests through people in this world. Now, the important thing to understand, Shakyamuni, that was his name, Shakyamuni. Shakyamuni Buddha accomplished life for me, for you, as a human being. He died of food poisoning. See? He died of food poisoning. He never claimed to be God. He simply worked his life trying to understand why people suffer, why animals suffer, why little children, why old people, why do people get diseases. And he found out why. And when he found out why, he said, it's too difficult to explain to people. And they said, you can't explain it. So he said, okay, I'll teach it, but I'll show you something. I can't show you what it is, but I can show you how to get there. And that's what he did. Showed you and me how to get there. And that's what why did Jesus get killed? Jesus didn't get killed because he started a new religion. Jesus got killed because he showed people a new way to the kingdom, which went against the way of religion, and they couldn't deal with that. He was a threat. I'm a threat. I know that. So somebody asked, I don't know who told me this, but there's church around the corner there, and they said, what does that guy teach down there? And the guy said, Buddha. So all we know is he teaches Buddha. We've taught every word in the book of Matthew in this church. 3 times. Thank you. Well, we never stop. We never will stop teaching Jesus Christ. Every word, taught every line in the book of Revelation, didn't we? In fact, we're going to start coming up and we're going to redo some of the series for television on the mystical Noah's Ark, the mystical Cain and Abel, the mystical Abraham and I, and all that Old Testament stuff we're going to start doing too at night time. But you know, Jesus Christ accomplished the same thing, life for us and his behavior. I want to show you something. Do you have little Bibles? Go to page 93 in the New Testament. Go to John chapter 5. If it's too hot in here, somebody turn the air conditioner on. Do whatever you have to do. I don't know. I run out of, I don't know whether it's hot or cold or what it is. But I want you to be involved in this. I want you to finally come to your senses, and I want you to realize you're living in the new age of Aquarius, and everything is now blossoming for you, and the angels of light and the beings of light are moving on this planet, and they're touching you, and you've got to get inside to feel it and make it yours, and if you do, it'll change things. It'll change things tremendously. It's just like the world has changed. It didn't wait to decide whether Gorbachev wanted to do this. It didn't wait whether to decide the Russians or anybody else. It just changes everything because all of a sudden everybody starts thinking differently. You're thinking differently. That's why you're sitting here. You don't feel the way. You don't think the way you used to think. What I get blamed for by these people? Because I teach people to obey Jesus Christ. Not to read about him, but to do what he said. To give you back your individuality, to give you back your freedom, because you should not be like a group. You should be the very best you that you are, and that means become an individual and stop stressing yourself trying to live up to all of the rules and laws that the system sets, because the system is sick too. I saw this morning that Florio on the first page of the Asbury Park Press, he's going around talking to people in the state, and he said never in his life has he seen a point where people are living under such stress. And he says, as far as every place he's been, regardless of him or anybody else, he says, they say the system doesn't work. So read about it. It's on the first page of the Asbury Park Press. The system doesn't work because it can't work in the Aquarian age anymore because there is no system. It's you, the individual free you. And if you want to change, you talked about change in politics. Do you know what you do? You come in and allow that angel to speak to you and allow him to touch you inside in your meditation, and the vibrations explode. Do you think the people in Russia had an opportunity to vote those guys out? No. What did that touch, that light, the light beings that are touching you and starting to touch in a big way here in this country? It's great. What did Jesus say? John chapter 5. What did he say? Was he such a superhuman being? Was he such a guru? What did he say? John chapter 5, verse 30. I can of mine own self do nothing. And what about if he pats himself on the back? Hey, look at me. I'm on all the Christmas cards. Oh, little time. Hey, that's me. away in a manger. That's me. Hey, I'll sign your autograph. Hey, gee. Could he do that? Could he say, look at me? Ain't I something? Ain't I hotsy-totsy? No, because he said, look at verse 31. If I bear witness of myself, in other words, if I tell you Jesus can do this and Jesus can do that, what does he say? My witness is not true. If I start telling you, he said, that I'm something special, forget about it. So there Jesus, being totally human, just like you, had no power, had no more power than you do, did not possess anything in the physical realm any more than any of you sitting here. In other words, he's saying, just like everybody sitting in every chair, I have got nothing more than any of you. And that's great. But it says in 1 John 4:2 that every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is of God. That means a total human being encased within a total carnal mind, just as you are, just as I am. And Shakyamuni Buddha and Jesus Christ, both human beings, found something. They found something that was available to every human being who will ever be alive. Buddha called it Buddhahood. Jesus called it the kingdom of God, that inner being that dwells at the right hemisphere of your brain, now trying to awake from the slumber that it's been in all of your life. All of your life. That, what they had reached was the highest state of life, and that's what's possible for you all to reach. Hey, look, watch. Go to page 104 in your New Testament. You're on John 5. Go to John 14. Here's Jesus. Didn't Jesus do wonderful things? Say yes, they're on television. Yes. Don't you believe that Jesus, did great things for all the people in the world? Yes. Didn't he do? Don't you love all the things that Jesus did for everybody? Yes. Right? Isn't it true? You can't. Could I get in trouble by going in any church and saying, didn't Jesus do wonderful things? Wouldn't everybody say, yes. Didn't Jesus do great things? Yes. Didn't Jesus do marvelous things? Yes. Look at John 14. Huh? Look at John 14. Would you go to verse 12? I say to you, he that believes on me, the works that I do shall he do, and greater works than these shall he do, because I go to the Father. Why do you have to go to the Father? Because he couldn't have you looking at a man. He couldn't have you following a superstar like you follow on television. Huh? He had to plug you into the source. Not the offspring of the source. He came to show you the way. But he couldn't have you listening to him. He had to have you listening to him. He had to go. Because, you know why? If he would tell Albert, I want to tell you something about the kingdom. You know what would happen when Albert would tell? She would change a teeny bit. And then when it gets to Joe, God knows what's going to come out. And Joe's going to come over here and tell Marie. And I don't know if you've ever met Marie, but when Marie gets known, it's going to be a beaut, right, Marie? And when Marie tells Marge, what's she going to hear? The way I heard it, you got to wash your feet, stick your head in a bowl of cleaning fluid, and then say 3 times, Jesus is Lord, and eat a little bread and a matzah, and everything is great. See what I'm saying to you? That's religion. So what did he say? No, you can't do that. Don't listen to the other guy's version of it. Go inside and go to the source. And you're looking at somebody that does, and you're looking at somebody that you say, where did you get this stuff from? And I'm telling you where I got it from. I tell you where I came from to share it with you. So you're going to say, oh, he's crazy. Well, they said he was crazy too. Said all these guys were crazy. But you got an opportunity. I didn't ask you for it. Well, how much? Has anybody knocked on your? You got any envelopes from us saying, oh, you got to pay up your 10%, or where's your money? No. And you left here. You didn't come for a while. Anybody beating on your door saying, oh, we missed you. Where you been? Nobody said. You're free. Do what you want. You come, you go, you don't. See, everybody don't go. Everybody stays away. Me and the blonde, we get the dog, the cat, we go to Key West. Tiny, whiny, bum, bum. Hey, listen, it might not be bad that way either. Okay. So there is no fundamental difference between you and Buddha or Jesus Christ. No fundamental difference. I'm telling you, Debbie, you're exactly the same as him. You are exactly the same as Jesus. You're exactly the same. Every single one of us sitting in here, exactly the same. Just open the right side like they did and let it pour out. And now, with the Aquarian age rushing all over the place, you got beings who are chopping the rust over those doors so they can swing open freely. You got it. This is it. This is it. It's life. You want life for your children? You're pretty well proud of our heritage, what has happened to the children after 2,000 years with their hands on it? You think that's the way you want to continue it? Must the children be subjected to all of this mayhem, drugs, violence? Are we pretty proud? We drop bombs. We got thousands of people buried under places we don't even know. We come back, had a parade. Isn't this great? Aren't we wonderful? That's what you want? It's not what you want. You're pretty proud that the dolphins had to make a statement by swimming up on the beach, commit suicide. I always felt that somewhere in their little fins, each dolphin, as he came up to beach himself and to commit suicide, was making a statement just like that. Putting his fin up to his nose and say, look what you did. Look what you did. Why don't you put your Bibles down and start to understand nature? Why don't you get out of church and come down and start to understand life? That's coming too. That's coming too. But the Apostle Paul says, who has known the mind of the Lord that we may instruct him? Go to page 156, 1 Corinthians chapter 2 in your little Bibles. 1 Corinthians chapter 2 in those little Bibles, okay? And verse 16, who has known the mind of the Lord that may instruct him? But we have the mind of Christ. Do you know what that means? See, the Christ mind is the right hemisphere of the brain. Your mind is the left hemisphere of the brain. If you cast your net to the right side, you open the right hemisphere of the brain. You open the Christ mind. We have the mind of Christ. See, now let me tell you a little bit about Buddhahood and Christ consciousness. Here's the difference. Though it is one of the 10 worlds, okay, each one of these 10 worlds has part of the other in it, except this one, okay? It's not like the other 9. It's different. And Shakyamuni Buddha taught this, see? Because these are all active. Hell is active in you, you know that. Hunger, desire is active in you. The animal nature is active in you. Anger is active in you. Tranquility is active in you. Rapture, you get those periodic times you just soar to the top, that's active in you. Learning is active in some of you. Realization is acting in you. Bodhisattva means doing for others. You have those periods of time when you want to do for others. But there's one that's not active in you. And he said that's why. It's the sleeping serpent coiled 3.5 times at the base of the spine called the Kundalini. And it only becomes active when you call it. When the flute is on the lips of God, it will rise and devour all of the troubles and all of the hurts and all of the angers. And he says it has to be woken up. You remember Matthew 8:23? Jesus was sleeping in the boat. He wasn't sleeping in a boat. There was a storm. It's a story to tell you about your mind. The disciples said, how are we going to get through this storm? That's you. How are you going to get through the storm you're going through? What storm are you going through? How are you going to get through it? What are you going to do? What did they do? They went over and they woke the sleeping servant, the sleeping Savior, and he woke up and he said, peace, be still. Wake it up. It's sleeping inside of you. What is it that's eating you? What is it that's devouring you? What is it that's hurting you? You go in and wake it up, and it will wake, and it will say, peace, be still. It will bring peace. It will bring peace. Okay. And what happens truly happens. This is what it says of Buddha. Listen, quote, the joy of joys, birth, old age, and death are no longer suffering, but part of the joy of living. The light of wisdom illuminates the entire universe, destroying the innate nature of man. The life space of the Buddha becomes united and fused with the universe. That's you. The self becomes the cosmos. That's you. And in a single instant, the life flow stretches out to encompass all that is past, all that is future. And each moment of the present, the internal life force of the universe gushes forth as a gigantic fountain of energy. Pretty neat, isn't it? Of course, there's not a whole lot of us that can claim to have experienced that. We have occasional episodes of rapture, you know, things go good. But there's a big difference because rapture can be easily disrupted, can't it? What did Buddha say is the cause of suffering? Rapture is a very... See, Christianity didn't coin that phrase, incidentally. That's Buddhic. And rapture means raising yourself up to high levels of emotional and spiritual well-being. You feel great. Everything's going super. Just everything is fantastic. Okay? I'll show you how your rapture can be disrupted. You know, you work all year. You'll wait to go down to Key West on vacation. You know, you go to bed at night, you know. The sun has been shining. The stars are out. They're singing Tiny-Whiny all over the place. Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville's. Oh, boy, this is great. That's rapture. What could be? Huh? Wasting away in Margaritaville. Oh, this is great. Let me show you how all of a sudden rapture goes away. As you stir in the morning, you hear, what is that? Must be the Holy Spirit. And you look out your little window, and the Holy Spirit has turned the palm tree this way and cast a pall of gray over everything. Well, what happened? What happened to Tiny-Whiny? Where is everybody? It's gone. It's like the weather. See, it's very, very temporary. Buddhahood, as Shakyamuni taught, Christ consciousness is not temporary. The joy cannot be destroyed by suffering. See, when you suffer, you feel every pain of it. You try to work. See, what are you trying to do? Whatever problem you have in your life, you're trying to think of things to get out from under those problems, aren't you? And you know what Shakyamuni Buddha said? Isn't it a little silly to try to think your way out of your problems when you realize that it was thinking that got you into the problem in the first place? There is where you've got to get the thought from. You know, I was thinking, every once in a while, the Spirit gives me a line that I think maybe after I am gone, maybe then they'll say, gee, you know, he wasn't such a fakakta after all. Look at what he said. You know, I thought this guy was a real schmuck. Yeah, look. You know what I thought? I was listening, I said, I looked at the dogs, little Gigi and Daisy and Prissy and all the animals and the squirrels and everybody. And I looked and I said, I envied them so much because they are completely guided 100% by God, by instinct you call it, God nature. You know what came to me? Our thoughts are our ideas. Their thoughts are God's ideas. Isn't that great? Isn't that great? Just to know and have that little thing you hold up in your hand and say, I may think you're all crazy. That's simply because I'm nuts. And I haven't come back to the center. Oh, excuse me. That's simply because we're nuts. And we haven't come back to the center and understand the true nature of things. So the life force of wisdom, courage, and compassion are all part of that Buddhahood, Christ consciousness. See, this isn't something you work your way up to. This is something that explodes within you. Give it a chance now. This is the new age. This is Aquarius. This is what Jesus prophesied. Cast your net to the right side. Do it now. Do it now. Even humbly. I don't care what anybody says. If they say it's kooky, it's cult, it's evil, do it. That means it's right because they don't know. They don't know. And these people on television telling you it's evil. Can you imagine this? Do you understand that these people on television who have been taking this money and doing all of these terrible things have been leading us spiritually? Where do you think we've gotten? Where do you think they've gotten? And Paul puts it very well in 2 Corinthians 12. 2 Corinthians 12:9. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. And that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to all of us. And I'm asking you to come to that point, basically within yourself, where there is no description or understanding. But there's something as we close out that should be wonderful and meaningful to everybody sitting in this room. Once you begin to reveal and feel and sense that Buddhahood or that Christ consciousness, you don't have to suppress or deny any of the lower states of your personality. Because the lower states of your personality will start to take this life themselves, because you can't stop anyhow. You know how many times you said, you know, look how nice you look and how good I look. Don't I look religious? Look, I got a medal. I got a Bible, don't I? And look how nice you look. I mean, you really do. You got very young ladies and men coming to church on Sunday morning. Do you know what some of you have had going through your head while you've been sitting here? Look at the smiles on your faces. Wouldn't it be something? Oh, she's covering her mouth. It might have been a butte going through there. Wouldn't it be something of, oh, suddenly we could project your thoughts, Debbie, up onto the screen? But yet you look so religious. You've been listening to it. You've got Bibles open and everything. Bibles open. I see it. With the Bible open, you start to stare. And into your head has come some things that shouldn't be in church on Sunday morning. Huh? Why? So you could say you're doing this, you could say praise the Lord, but what's happening inside the lower chamber? What's going on in there? Huh? Think about it. Maybe you better not think about it. You've been spending too much time thinking about it. So, there are no rules here, right? No regulations. Nobody bothered you. You come in, hey, did you hear what he did? He did it. That's his problem. It's his business. I don't tell you what to do. I don't tell you you should do this. I don't tell you you should do that. I don't tell you you should do anything or do nothing. That's your problem. Nothing is nothing. You do, you don't. That's it. Because you know why? You're talking at the original rebel without a cause. And the initial. I mean, if you told me something, initially it would trigger me to go the other way. That's the way I've been all of my life. I remember one time that I cut school. I was in high school. I didn't show up for 6 months. 6 months. My mother, everybody said, my son, I sent him with his little brown bag and his little tin thing, and he goes off to school every day. You have the wrong person. She didn't know I was hiding in the closet till she went to work. Behind the coats lurked this little mind saying, I would spend the day sipping Pepsi and listening to Jack Bailey, Queen for a Day, on the radio, you know. I didn't go. Take off, leave. I didn't want any part of it. I want any part of it. So send me to college. They send me anywhere. To everybody, I say, what happens if you go to college? This is where you go. You get very smart. I'm not going. I don't want to. Are your father, you know, your mother worked, you're going to send you to college. You're going to send me, because that's where everybody goes. I ain't going. I don't want to go. I don't want to learn what they learn. You know? Do you know that 50% of the scientists who are alive in the universe today are working on bombs? 50% of them are working on how to kill people. I don't want to go. So I've always been that way. And my favorite, we got to get it for the church. And someday we have a big screen, we'll play it. The 30,000 penguins. You ever see them? This is great. They all come to the cliff, and they all jump off. And there's one penguin that comes up, and I love this guy. He comes up to the end of the cliff, and he goes, one penguin, that's me. That's my penguin. You don't want to be like them. Go out now. Now's the time. Go out. Remember when you were a little kid, say, don't get those. Don't ever read these books. Don't ever read these books. Go get them. Go get them. Put them in your house all over the place. Bring in your born again. Oh, look what I got. Woo! The guru. Why you should be reading that? They're afraid of other people's ideas. Don't you see how evil it is to stop people from thinking? Don't ever be afraid to read. Don't ever tell your children not to read this or that or anything. Read. You can guide children, yes, but you've got to do what you say. But let me show you why. I don't have the page on this. I'm almost done. I don't have the page on this, but it's Matthew 13. I'll tell you, in spite of what these people say out there, I do not do anything unless Jesus Christ ordains it. If he says it, I do it. I practice the single eye because he said it. I cast my net to the right side because he said it. I take no thought because he said it. I seek inside of myself because he said it. I don't do anything unless he says it. And so when I learned in the ministry here as to how to deal with people that have problems and do things they shouldn't do, I learned by him. Matthew 13, verse 28. Somebody had sown some evil seed in the wheat field, and there was tares, and that's weeds growing up along with the wheat, okay? And so, verse 27, the servants came to him and said, we saw good seed in the field, but where has tares? And he said, an enemy has done this. And then he said, well, will you that we go and gather them up? Verse 29, no, because while you gather up the tares, you're going to root up also the wheat. Let them both grow together. And in the time of the harvest, I'll say to the reapers, gather them up. In other words, Jesus Christ is saying, get off everybody's back. Your job is not to correct anybody's bad habits, because they may not be bad, especially with your habits. Take a look at your habit. Take a look at my habit. But what he's saying is, when you look at that, realize something. Just get them in. Get them inside of themselves, because as the spirit, the wheat grows, that stuff that's bothering them will fall off by itself. It'll be ripped off by itself spiritually. Religion has never been able to deal with that. So you're smoking, you're drinking, your sex life, that's up to you. Some of this stuff is not good for you. Really isn't. I mean, but you know that. You do it. You do it. You know what the consequences are. It has nothing to do with spirituality. It has nothing to do. You know what? Sin? This is the biggest joke in the world. You ready for this? Say yes. What is sin? You don't know. Let me show you something. In mysticism, the moon means your emotions. That's what it means, your emotions. If you get a book on mythology and look it up, you will see that the goddess of the moon is sin. All it was ever meant is that when you're dwelling in sin, you're dwelling in your emotions instead of dwelling in the renewed mind. That's all it means. And yet these people have made out of it. Did you ever ask where the word come from? Why didn't you ask somebody where the word come from? Not one answer out of you. Look, you're staring at me. You never knew whether. Why'd they call it sin? Why didn't they call it schlup or soup? Why didn't they call it peanut butter? Or, you know, why didn't they call it, I could see your mind gets into all the, so they call it sin. That's what, sin, look it up. Go to, you're a librarian. Show these people to get a book out of mythology, a dictionary of mythology. Look up the word. The moon goddess. That's all it's ever meant. And it means you're dwelling in your emotions. You know what happens to the moon when the earth gets between the sun? There's darkness. Eclipse. Huh? You know what happened to Jesus when he was crucified? It was an eclipse. But when the earth moves out of the way of the moon, then it receives the light of the sun. Your emotions, when you get in the way, you block the light of Christ. You will block the light of nirvana. When you get out of the way, whew, the sun from the right side, from the east, comes and shines upon the moon of your inner being, and it's lit. And you're no longer living in the emotions. You're no longer living in sin. That's all it means. So get off your guilt trips. Okay? I'll just finalize this by saying that Shakyamuni Buddha said that this was for everybody, but you're not the only ones that have had trouble finding it. The Buddhists have not too long ago said Shakyamuni, the Lord of the doctrines, is the Buddha who has destroyed illusion. He is the sovereign of all sentient beings in the entire universe. Common mortals, heavenly beings, how could such a great Buddha dwell in the hearts of common mortals? So the question was, how can it be? Do you possess it? And the answer is, yes, you do. And if you can see that the theory of the 10 worlds, from hell to Buddhahood, accurately describes life, then you can also be assured that Christ consciousness does it well. I'm going to give you 2 quotes from Shakyamuni Buddha, who I love very much as a man, as a teacher, as a man who fought and worked very hard to help people be freed from suffering, and as a man who has been very tarnished and very abused by people of the West and our religious people who never understood him. He talked about you, and he made this little statement. I wish I could speak in kind of a dialect, but I can't. Quote, "Remember, tarnished silverware will be fit for a king when it's polished." Like that? And he said, the lower mind, clouded by the confusion of the lower nature, is like a tarnished mirror. But once it is cleaned, it becomes clear and reflects the truth. And Shakyamuni said, my friends, polish your mirror night and day by chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And I thought it was beautiful that after he said that, about 1,000 years later, a young man named Paul said, for now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. For now I know in part, but then I shall know, even as I am known. And you are known in only one place, the higher divine mind. The only way to prove if you do have this quality is to meditate. And then listen to the Shakyamuni Buddha. If the diagnosis is right, the medicine will work. And also, if the medicine works, the diagnosis was right. Thank you for sharing this time with Buddha, and good to have you. When you're finished with this tape, please send it on to the next person as quickly as you can. Also, there is a card. Would you send the card back to Mary? There's a route sheet in your tape, and if you would put that back in the box, then the next person who receives the tape will know where they're to send it. And we survive by your asking for the monthly envelope to buy the tapes. We need another recorder and, all that stuff. So whatever you can do, if you will ask for the monthly envelope, each month we'll send you a Hidden Meanings teaching and a monthly envelope, and you put in whatever you can. All right? Thank you very much.